Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm back with another video, and today we are going to be taking a look at this bass. It is a Reese bass. Sounds like this. And here is the example that I have. This is a song that I started last night. I don't know if I'm going to finish it or not, but it sounds pretty cool as of now. Let's go ahead and have a listen to that. So yeah, it's a pretty deep bass, and I like it because it still has those really deep tones, but it almost has a little bit of vocalness to it, and it's actually fairly simple to make. So it shouldn't be a super long video. I'll just kind of go through the patch from Serum, and we should be on our way. And then I will probably do a follow-up video sometime down the line talking about multi-band sidechaining / multi-band creative effects usage, where on this particular song I'm using multi-band sidechaining for the bass, and then on my synths I'm using multi-band gating. So that's kind of where those glitchy bells are coming from. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the Serum patch. Right off the bat, we have a saw wave that's detuned, into 7 voices. Then we have a sub oscillator that has a direct output, and this is important because if you have a saw and everything is detuned, then you're going to have a lot of stereo in your bass, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second, but let's move on. So that's pretty much it. That's your source sound from this, and then there's just a low pass filter that is covering here. This is covering the sub, but it doesn't really mean anything because the direct output is, yeah, I don't know why that's on. Anywho, one last thing is I have some key tracking on, and then there is some fat that's going on, so it's pumping out a little bit more volume. Onto our effects, there is some hyper and dimension expander going on to widen out the sound. This is okay because we're going to fix it in a second. Normally when you add in too much stereo, then you get this like thinner sound, but don't worry about it. Next up we have some chorus. It's got a pretty high mix set at a 0.04 hertz rate, and that is pretty slow. Next up we have our distortion tab, which is on tube, and it's just being cranked up super far, a little bit more than halfway. We have some phasing going on. We have a phaser going on with a low mix. The rate is set to 2 bars because it's synced with the BPM. Wait, 2 bar triplet? Yeah, 2 bar triplet, and you can just kind of copy those settings. This is going to make a big difference in your sound. With the compressor set on some multiband, if we take a listen, so if you like those kind of like crunchy higher tones, then I would suggest using the multiband on this. But if you want it to be a little bit more subtle, then you can switch it back over and go right back into using, or not using it rather. Finally, we have some reverb. It's set onto a plate with a big size, decent mix. And again, you can kind of ballpark this. All of these settings don't really need to be surgical by any means whatsoever. But that's pretty much the majority of this patch. It's pretty simple. Some other things that I've added is a little bit of attack on the first envelope. On the second envelope, there is a pitch modulation thing. So I'm just doing a 2-octave pitch bend on the envelope that just kind of gives it a little bit of a kick sound. It's too high. You'll see me do that in a lot of different basses. There is some pitch bend that you can work with here. There's also a mono setting with a little bit of portamento set on, so that's where I'm getting my sliding if you're trying to figure out how I did that. And then outside of the patch, I have some fletching going on. Fletchering? Fletching. If you don't know what that is, just Google it in the terms of sound. But basically, as you go up the octave, the sound is perceived as louder because of the higher pitch. It's easier to detect. So to counteract that, which is why you might see a lot of people take the lows out, I am kind of just giving this nice little curve that is curving through my natural octave, or cutting the octave that I'm playing in. And what this is going to do is keep the volume consistent, or the perceived volume consistent with the rest of the tune. Mr. Whittler turned me on to that. So yeah, that's super basic. Just throw a bell and dip your low mids. There's other reasons why you do that, but in this particular case, don't worry about it. So yeah, next up I have an OTT. The only thing that you need to change is the amount to 27%. And then this is where we are saving everything from when I was talking about our hyperdimension expander. I have everything from 173 hertz and below into mono. So that way I can kind of go crazy with my stereo effects on here and not have to worry about losing my low end, which is also why I have that support for the sub. Because if I turn this off, it gives it that extra backbone, in my opinion. Now, it's not to say that you should always throw in a solid sub under it, but in this particular case, I think that it was necessary to do, and plus it adds kind of a little bit more to that crunchiness, which I really like. But yeah, man, it's a really simple patch, and it sounds really cool. There's some other things that you can do to it, but for this particular case, I just wanted something that, you know, sounded kind of groovy with this 16-bar loop that I wrote. So yo, I hope you like this vid and found it informative. Subscribe to my shit because I am close to 100 subscribers. So thank you guys who have been watching my content, and let me know in the comments what you think, if this is a bass for you or not. Take care. Happy producing.